Although the big game is over, we have some big news. Old Southern Barbecue is extending their playoff platter special through March Madness. 40 wings, 2 slabs of ribs, ranch dressing, and a bottle of barbecue sauce for just $89.99. So if you are hosting any of the big sporting events coming up, make sure to order the playoff platter and bring your crowd to its feet this playoff season. And make sure to tell them that DTA sent you. Are you looking for a dedicated partner for your lacrosse needs? ES Lacrosse has got you covered. If you're brand new to the game, a seasoned vet, or a dedicated lacrosse parent, ES Lacrosse is the go-to partner for Minnesota Lacrosse and DTA Nation. Whether you need new gear, a restringing of your current setup, custom uniforms or apparel for your team, or one of their awesome starter sets for your brand new lacrosse player, the selection, expertise, and service at ES Lacrosse is unmatched. You can visit them in-store at one of their 3 metro locations in Woodbury, Chanhassen, and Vadnais Heights, or visit them online at eslacrosse.com.
And welcome to Down the Alley. This is PMAC.
And Ted T.S. Spirides.
Yeah, welcome. I feel like sports are popping off. We got trades left and right. Yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling good coming in this episode. How are you feeling?
Yeah, it has been it was the start. At the time of this recording, we've had one opening weekend of college lacrosse. The women are actually start to so it will be tomorrow at the time of this recording. So the women are kicking off tomorrow. The men, some teams started last week. But kind of back to sports popping off. Yeah, we had the Luka trade. We had the Wild have been in the news because we had a center on our team that was being an idiot off the face.
A 10 game. Like, you gotta kill somebody in hockey to get a 10 gamer. That was egregious. 10 games.
So
should have been less.
Yeah, so we had that. And then, college lacrosse, I believe, on the last episode, the section 1 episode, we recorded that before the college season. Yep. I did a little teaser, Syracuse teaser. I said Michael Leo might be a guy to watch. We know about Spallina. We know about Owen Hiltz.
Yeah.
We know about all those superstars, but Michael Leo, someone to watch. ACC Player of the Week this year.
Not a big deal.
So
are you an insider? Are you basically a Syracuse insider?
I'm a Syracuse Adam Schefter. That's what I am. I still don't quite. I don't know if I'm quite believing the hype yet. We talked about it last episode.
The hype is real. Like, it's there.
A lot are heavy on them. We'll see. Jacksonville, I like what they've built there. I'm not ready to make a ton of assumptions on Syracuse beating Jacksonville, but they did beat them pretty handedly. So
yeah,
we'll see about that. But the elephant in the room before we let our guest in, and maybe this is a rant for another day.
What is it? What is the elephant in the room? I'm not sure where you're going.
Lacrosse, the being able to watch college lacrosse situation. There's been a lot of posts about it. There's been a lot. I posted something about it on, do we call it Twitter anymore? Is it just called X now? Is it X/Twitter?
I think it's Twitter. I think it's still Twitter.
And again, it's not like, I think everybody realizes that producing a stream costs money because you have to have people that 100%. Are invested. Yep. You got to have equipment. You got to have all these things. But like, it seems to be like every year, it just seems to be a miss all the time. And it's like, is $15 a month that big of a deal? No. Especially if
to buy 5 though. Come on.
Oh, but that's what I kind of broke down on my post was like, it's not about that it's a paid stream, but it's okay. I'm paying $15. So then I put my credit card in. All right. I kind of, buy once, cry once. Right. So you buy once, cry once, but
I'm okay with that rule.
Okay. So now, all right. I paid the money. I don't love doing it, but it's okay. It's lacrosse. And then you log on. It doesn't even work half the time.
You're not wrong.
And then so you're like, okay, well, all right, I can still live with that. Then it's like, all right, I'll flip to a different game. This one's kind of a shitty game. Oh, I need another subscription to another thing that I'm not going to watch anything else on that subscription except for one college lacrosse team, you know? And so then you have that. And then it's like, yeah, and then it all the games are at the same time. So now you're like, I can only watch one game, but I want to watch so it's like a myriad of things that it just are frustrating. Look, like not even the casual fan. Like the casual fan probably just gave up a long time ago,
Yeah.
but like the hardcore fans like us that are willing to invest, we just like still make you need a PhD to watch freaking college lacrosse, and it's yeah, it's frustrating. That's my rant for the day before we get into section two.
Let's I don't have a lot to add. So let's get to section two. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more college lacrosse later this episode. But really excited about our guest here. Section two, not his first time on Down the Alley. We've got Garrett Brunsvold, uh, Minnetonka offseason coach, Winter League scout, former offensive coordinator at William Penn, and obviously a former teammate of mine at Detroit, as well as Aaron Wiederhoft, another friend of the show, former teammate of his at Lindenwood. Garrett Brunsvold, welcome to Down the Alley.
Thanks for having me, guys.
What is going on? I know you and me chat behind the scenes. We like to dive deep, but what's going on this time of year? What are you up to? Lacrosse wise.
Yeah, moved back here, what, 6, 7 months ago now. So lacrosse wise, I actually volunteered at Minnetonka right when I moved back. So I spent a month with the team. Um, Took it off this summer just because it was a complete grind going from January to June, pretty much every day of the week. But yeah, I've ran some scrimmages, been running some dome league with Minnetonka, some box, and yeah, kind of a quiet time of the year before it starts up in 2 months from now.
Right on, right on. I know in the Discord and some of the hardcore down the alley fans, they like to comment. They like to comment on the winter leagues, the league, the scores, what they're seeing. What are you seeing? Any big storylines, before we do a deep dive into section two? What are you seeing in the winter league as, our official winter league scout?
I didn't know people were putting, I'm not in the Discord, so I didn't know if people were putting scores and commentary in there. So I might have to check it out. But yeah, I guess my big takeaway is the first game. Now, keep in mind, Winter League, everybody's got 70% of their team there. Benilde's still going to be good. They have good systems in place. So we played them one week. They still know how to ride. They still know how to clear. They play really hard, and they're a disciplined team. Saw that. And then, we're playing the Lake Conference teams every week, and they're just dog fights. Some teams, though, some teams have a couple subs. Some teams come fully staffed. So it's kind of hard to tell, I would say, here in Winter League. You take everything with kind of a grain of salt. But yeah, I mean, I've seen the top end Division I kids, Division II kids, Division III kids from these 8 or 9 teams that are in the league, and yeah, we put on a good showing. It's been positive. We have 2 teams in the league, so our JV team's in the league too, playing against some of the varsity. So yeah, those guys will be seasoned by the time they're juniors and seniors, but obviously some games are a little more favorable than others.
Love it. Love it. I want to just get into kind of dive right into section two here. That's what the people, are really coming to this episode for. Looking back, last year, section two had a massive, massive shakeup in favor of section six. Section six loves to welcome the best teams. We just collect them all. We're like the Pokemon collectors. We just all right. You're a good, strong Pokemon. That's how much I don't even know character. Yeah, we want you. We want you in section six. But we left section two a couple teams. Chanhassen, Tonka. A couple of blue blood programs and programs that have competed for that section. For a long time. But in Prairie and Shakopee, leaving section two was kind of breaking news last year. I don't know if everyone else was as shocked as me. But that, I don't know. That was pretty surprising. You've got some up and coming programs. Buffalo, they've been in the mix. Orono, and others as well. But Chanhassen and Tonka, are they going to be kind of looking ahead here? Are they the favored two programs? Is there someone coming up on their heels? What does Section 2 look like going into 2025?
I think there's a lot of questions going into 2025 in terms of graduating seniors, this next tier of teams, who of them is going to kind of step up, um, kind of who's who. But looking at the top, I would definitely say us and Chan are probably two of the more established teams at the top there. Like you said before, there's some up and comers and newcomers, but historically, Chan the past couple of years has had a lot of success getting to state. I think this past group of seniors did a really good job finishing the section strong, getting us to the state tournament. But yeah, happy to kind of go through where I think everything's breaking down. But yeah, the way I look at it, there's a couple of different tiers of it. There's some teams at the bottom of the section. It's not really their fault by any means, but there shouldn't be teams like Hutchinson competing for a single A state tournament or a double A state tournament. We need a single A and a double A in the state, in my opinion, because how is a team like Hutchinson supposed to grow when they're competing with teams like Chan and Minnetonka for to get into a state tournament? I think if you look at our section, and I pulled it up here on lax numbers. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a big lax numbers guy. I rely on it for a lot of stuff. I like the insights of their breakdown. But you look at the bottom here, we got Waconia, we got Mound, we got Hutchinson, Delano. Those are just smaller schools. That's nothing to do with coaching or talent. It's just they're smaller schools and smaller communities drawn from a smaller pool. So I think a lot of the top and the bottom of our section kind of just has to do with enrollment.
It's just one of those weird things where I feel like every section kind of has a little bit of that. And I agree with you. I would like to see some way to balance it because, if you take like for example, Waconia Hutchinson, that playing game last year, 10-9 overtime game, competitive game. Hutchinson had a kid that's playing Division I lacrosse now. So like you said, talent's there, but it's like if you only have 25 guys coming out for your program and Minnetonka has, they cut 25 guys from their varsity team, it's like it gets kind of like it's a balance thing, right? So I'm glad you brought that up, and I think it's a real point.
Couple talking points. And one of them is a question. Before we kind of go, maybe team by team ish. Any new teams in this section? Is there any change up? Obviously, we talked about change ups of last year. Is there any change ups that we know at this time of this section?
Yeah, so I think they only do section changes every 2 years. So I
Okay,
think last year they made changes, and then next year, 2026, they'll look and see like, oh, did teams co-op? Did new teams get added?
gotcha.
We'll balance it all out. So I think it's every 2 years. So unless something drastic like out of character happens, I would assume it's the same 10 teams in the section.
Gotcha. News to me. That's why we get on here. I didn't know they do it every 2 years. So there we go. That's why we get on the mics.
Yeah.
That's why we talk these things out. Through conversations that we've had to lead up to this episode. I know there are a couple of new coaches in this section. Mound West Tonka. Mound West Tonka. Their assistant coach, who was assistant coach of the year, has taken over that program.
Orno.
And Orno. Have they named their new head coach?
They
Yes.
have very
They
recently.
have.
Ian Edwards is his name.
Ian Edwards. He was playing college lacrosse in Wisconsin. Was that Carthage? He was at Carthage. He was playing with Vadnais, another friend of the program.
Yep. Yep.
So a couple of new head coaches, that have been on our radar. Those are the two big ones, noticeable ones that I know of. Am I missing any that anyone else knows?
Yeah, that's all I know of.
No. Good. I'm gonna go by seeding here, at least to start. Chanhassen was the number one seed last year. They fell in a tight game to Minnetonka. Chanhassen, looking at their roster last year, playing, we played against them last year. A couple of big studs. I think they lost one or two, definitely noticeable, if not more, to graduation. Um, but again, this is a program, that has been in the mix, been in the top 10 and higher year after year for the last 10 or so years. Chanhassen, is this a year where they're going to be able to reload again, or is this going to be a leaner year based on what we're seeing, what we're hearing?
I
I,
think from my perspective, just looking at it from the outside playing them last year, they're obviously losing a couple of big polls, and then they had the Utah offensive player Bush, but they are returning his little brother, who's a very good player. And they recently had a poll commit to Yale. I believe his last name is Stevenson or something.
yep.
Um, but yeah, losing a couple of really talented seniors. But what I see is they definitely, it's Chanhassen, and they have some talent in the pipeline. Um, and they have, they're pretty seasoned getting on the field last year. And they have, a decent system and pretty well established program in the state that's been top 10. So I won't expect that they forget how to clear or ride or do the little things right. They're still a well-oiled machine, even with losing I believe they had three Division I players last year, which is pretty pretty incredible for Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at this. So yeah, Daxton Bush, their leading scorer, and then Cade, his little brother, was their second, and then Adams, Patka, Schreiber, Maroney, the next 4 point producers all graduated. And then there's a senior that Jack Carlson, he'll be a senior this year, so he's back. And then Adam Rosalanka had 18 points last year. He graduated. And then as you mentioned, Tyler Burton, a UMass Pole, graduated. Jaden Thiel, Robert Morris Pole graduated. They lost their goalie. He was a senior. The backup did get a couple minutes of game, 28 minutes over the season, so very little. He was an eighth grader last year, so he'll be a freshman. Um, and like there wasn't.
Hey, he doesn't look like a freshman. So I played against this kid, or I didn't play against him. I coached against this kid. JV, he was their JV goal. I think he got JV time, if I'm not
Sure.
mistaken,
Yep.
last spring, and then played U14. This kid is a tall kid. He's a little bit. I'm getting a little bit of the Rosemount vibes, right?
Okay.
Rosemount goalie vibes.
Yep.
Big kid, takes up a lot of space in the goal, athletic. If this is the same kid, I can't confirm or deny. I think it is. I think it is. If it's the same kid I'm thinking of, um, this actually might be a smoother transition than it might look on paper.
That's good insight. So Henry Poulin, number 40 last year, um, like you said, probably got a lot of JV time, just very little at the varsity level. But if he is the guy, now they have a goalie for 4 years here. So that's a good sign. Have to pretty much replace production at every spot. But like you said, Garrett, Riley Severson, a poll, 2026 poll, headed to Yale in the future here. So he's obviously kind of, a star player on the back end.
Probably knows how to read the playbook too if he's going to Yale.
Probably does. Yep. Um, Noah Johnson, their face-off guy, had a 54% face-off percentage. So, they got a Fogo coming back. And this Blake Kennedy guy, freshman last year. Now he's a sophomore now. He's a pretty interesting player. I've run into him a little bit on the club circuit, and he's just one of those kind of utility athletes that I think it looks like he had it said LSM. He was playing LSM for them last year, maybe just to get on the field. I could see him maybe being doing, and he took faceoffs too. So like I could see him maybe getting some time at short stick midfield this year, just with how much graduation that they had. So Garrett, I think you're right. They're not going to forget how to play lacrosse. They're well coached. They've had a coaching staff there that's been there for years. So like the system is in place and the youth program is good. They have good, 12U and 14U teams. Obviously some of those kids go to Chaska, but I, I think it might be a leaner year. It might be a rebuilding year, but there's still a lot to work with there, in my opinion.
Going to the number 2 seed of last year in the section tournament, number 2, Minnetonka. Really interested to hear, some more insider knowledge from our guest. But this is another team year in, year out. They're in the mix. They upset. I don't know if you can even call it an upset between Chan and Tonka. That was probably a pretty, even matchup if I had to guess. Close game there at the end, but seeding wise, an upset. Minnetonka, going to the state tournament. Yeah, I kind of want to kick it over to you right away. To hear, some of the insight, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, you kind of pretty spot on. It was a great back and forth game with us and Chan, and you play that game 10 times, you're not going to get the same winner 10 times. So it's a very back and forth game. We were really proud of our senior class. Had a lot of guys step up and really fit into roles later in the year. But yeah, in terms of our outline, I jumped into practices with them for a month, and my big takeaways is there is a lot of guys in the Minnetonka program, and there's not as much field space as I expected, to be honest with you. We got varsity practicing on half a field, so that was my first observation. So, something to work on this year is getting more full field, half field, bigger, different types of, uh, game-like situations that weren't quite as 6v6 focused was something we really couldn't control because we have so many guys in the program and not enough fields at the school. So a lot of guys in the program, which is a super positive thing. I was shocked by it. But yeah, our outlook, the off season is really well organized. That's another thing that I was pleasantly surprised with. We're doing like a box league. We have our dome league. We insourced the tournament this year. We were going to one of the tournaments out here. We kind of made our own tournament with a couple of teams. So a strong, and when I was, when Grant was at Minnetonka as well, like it's a supportive parent group. There's tailgates before every game, and you know, they travel well. So it's a supportive group, and a lot more of these guys are playing year round than I initially thought. So that was a pleasant surprise. In terms of what we return, I mean, we return six double-digit point guys that all played roles in terms of starting roles last year, from Gabe, Laird, Logan, Charlie, E-Rob, and Tommy Winkler here. Those guys are all going to have big roles again. But obviously, coming in as you know, rumor mill has it that there might be a new offensive coordinator in town, so the system might change. The guys are still going to have very big roles, but it's just going to look a little bit different. In terms of, I'm looking at the points now. Gabe Miller had 65 points in 17 games. He looks very much improved from last year, so I'm very excited to see kind of where he goes. And then the guy who really jumped, Gabe's committed to Rockhurst, and Charlie committed to Albany this summer. And those guys, I mean, they put the work in this summer. They look really improved and good. So I'm excited to kind of see. In terms of where we kind of where we kind of were last year. We had a lot of the seniors playing kind of on the rope crew, Swiss Army knife, and a lot of we lost two really big middies, which we're going to have to replace. A lot of assists there, but a positive was our defense was really young last year. So we had some growing pains earlier in the year. But when those guys, they have another year under their belt, they're seasoned, and there's some much better leadership down there now.
Another position that I noticed that was, on the younger side was goalie. It looked like your starter, I assume who your starter was, got, more minutes, but your backup got a good amount of minutes, it looks like. What's the situation there? They both get a year older. It looks like both are returning. What are you expecting between the pipes?
Yeah, it's going to be competitive between the two of them. Winter League, they both look really good. The big focus with us is just have them see better shots. So both very capable goalies. We just need to have opposing offenses shoot favorable shots to, make us more successful.
Yeah, a couple other guys maybe. So you lost Liam Cassidy, really good midi that you talked about, but his brother Laird is a junior this year. He's an interesting player just with his size. He's a very long, tall, long arms. I've seen him play a little bit, and I'm in, 37 goals last year as a sophomore. So that's pretty impressive. He'll be a good he'll be a good addition to having a year older. Quentin Restrepo, so he's that deep pole that you said, running back on the football team too. So he's a tough kid. And he was a sophomore last year as well. So junior this year, now on the older end. But one guy that really impresses me every time I see him on the club circuit, I always check my notes. Adam Fortner, the face-off guy. I wouldn't even it might be insulting to call him a face-off guy because he's a great face-off guy, but he's pretty good at like all of lacrosse. He's not just a fogo. Took 281 face-offs last year as a freshman on varsity. That's tough. And was 52%. So again, I've seen him a little bit in the club circuit. He's really impressive. And, when he's going against guys his own age, he dominates. So we'll see what he looks like a year older. How's he looking in Winter League? Is he kind of an X factor for you?
Definitely. And like you guys said before, Q's leading the leader of the defense back there. Fortner, ton of potential with him, and he's got a good stick. So there's a ton of potential to kind of grow his role.
Yeah. A good face-off guy with like good stick skills. That sometimes that's kind of the trade-off there. You have to be like, they can win face-offs, but then after that, I don't know what's gonna happen. But it's nice to have a guy that like can maybe run some early offense for you, and make a play. So, yeah, I really like what Minnetonka has. Obviously some losses. Anytime you have a team of that size, a program, a school that big, you're gonna have senior graduation, but you get a lot of guys back. It's an exciting team this year.
Yeah, I'm super excited. And the thing I like is they'll know who they are a lot sooner in the season than they did last year. Just having a lot of guys getting on the field and having that those experiences last year. There's obviously guys who are pure scorers. We're gonna have to make up a little bit of feeding, but there's we kind of know who's who this season, so I think it'll be favorable for them.
Yeah, one other shout out, you said Tommy Winkler. Love that kid. I've had a little bit of coaching experience with him. The Big Easy, I call him. He just goes out there and it's just kind of effortless, but all of a sudden you look and he's got like 4 goals and you're like, oh, well, there you go. So he only had 7 games last year played. He got hurt. It must have got hurt or something, but hopefully he has a good year. Like that kid.
Yeah, we're excited to get him back this year. So yeah,
Kind of moving to, what I'd probably call the middle of the pack, middle of the pack teams, of this section. I'm looking at this 3, 4, and 5 seed. Is probably where I draw the line there. You got, starting with the 3 seed, Orno. Orno coming off a pretty good season, coming in with a new coach, Corey Childs, moving down to Texas, coming in with a new coach. And, Orno, looking at their roster, they actually return more than I thought. They're pretty junior heavy, it looks like. Biggest loss, maybe you could say would be their goalie, logged almost every minute. Down at Maryville now. That might be the biggest question mark I see right off the hop. That's kind of popping out to me. But Orno, what are we seeing? Is this a team that could, maybe sneak in and upset somebody?
Before we start there, Texas high school lacrosse coaching, there's a lot of money in it. And I got a number thrown at me. I went through the interview process there last year. They pay salaries for people just to coach lacrosse. So if you want to make it to the big leagues in lacrosse coaching, college isn't the move because you actually have to quit your full time for that. It's Texas. It's a fun fact there.
Yeah, that's what we've been hearing. I got to sell the wife on it, but maybe someday. But yeah, I mean, so Orno, interesting team. Yeah, like PMAX said, they lose their goalie, who's pretty good division, player playing Division 2 this year, but they did not. They did like so they were like 7-7 or 7-6 going into sections, but they don't score. Last year they did not score a lot of goals. Their leading point scorer only had 24 points, and they had a guy with 23 points, 14, 14, 12. So like not a team built on offense. But a lot of these guys come back now a year older as seniors. They're gonna have to produce because like we did talk about, they graduated kind of their star goalie they've had for a couple year.
Now that's a good point. I had to look because I saw the same thing, Ted, on Laxub, but I think the Laxub's a like a product of the coach not coming back because they didn't doesn't look like they updated all the stats because I tallied all the goals and they're missing like at least 30 goals in there because I'm like, how can their leading scorer only have that many points? So
That's fair. That's a fair point.
dude,
So
they
their
just
stats aren't updated. That's what we're saying.
it's tough to tell with some of these teams, but I played Orono with my younger guys in the indoor league, and what I'll say, PMAC, you hit it like spot on. That was my assumption too. The goalie was a stud last year. He's at Maryville now. And the kid just like makes a ton of saves. And the whole premise of them was they're like a stall ball team. They relied on the goalie to make a bunch of saves. They kind of held the ball, kind of just wanted to play like a 8-7 game with you. So when I played them, I kind of assumed that the new goalie, which I don't know, keep in mind it's winter league. I don't know who these goalies are, but the goalie in there was good. So I think that I mean he was clearing the ball well. He was hitting 35-yard passes. They have some good poles. I was pleasantly surprised with that. Very skilled, good poles. And then offensively, they have like 3 or 4 guys that can really play at a level. But another example, Orono, what's the grad class at Orono? Like 250? I don't know what it is, but prime example of a team that's competing with, Minnetonka, Lakeville North, all these other big teams. It's the reason why we need 2 divisions of Minnesota. Every other.
Would Orno? I guess Orno for hockey is single A.
Yeah.
They're a
You
small.
could put Benil down in single A too.
No, Benilde would be a double A team. Let's pump the brakes, Garrett. Let us ride with the idea, but don't get egregious with it.
Yeah. So I think like we all well, at least me and PMAC and maybe Garrett until recently, we all kind of felt like the goalie situation for Arno was going to be maybe the biggest question mark, but early reports are saying that the next guy up, is a pretty good player. and can probably give them that consistency. I'm not ready to say he's going to be as good or whatever, but it's someone serviceable that has potential to be a solid goalie for them. And a lot of their offensive guys come back. So, are they going to be a 6-5 team again, like that wants to play 6-5 games, or are they going to open it up a little bit and, be a little bit more fast paced this year with the new coach?
They looked a little more fast paced than Winter League. And no, I know they have a Lewis offensive player. I think they have one of the Wisconsin D3s, either a Carthage or a Concordia, Wisconsin. And then they have another really good, 6'2" midfielder as well. It's Weirmeyer, Charlie Cordes, and
Yeah.
can't think of the third. I don't have the
Carson,
roster up.
Carson Lewis.
Yes, Carson Lewis would be the third. So I mean, there's another guy in there as well. That'll be decent for my memory. So they'll have a very, very tight first line. I think the question with them is just going to be some depth.
Yeah.
But in terms of putting 10 guys on the field, they'll have a very competitive 10.
Yeah. That starting 10, if they can stay healthy, if they can get production out of those 10, they'll be a tough team to play against.
I think they had 2 8th graders on the team last year. So I think this is going to be a senior heavy team with some young talent as well, is kind of the vibe I'm getting from Warren.
Continuing on, the 4 seed last year, actually brought it to a 1-goal game against Chanhassen. This is a team, Buffalo, a couple years ago, they were my wagon. I was all over this stock. It was maybe the number 1 trending team on Down the Alley. Buffalo. New staff last year. Staff, assuming no changes going into year 2. They definitely had some seniors here. What are we seeing? Is this a team that could be 1 goal better and make a section final? They've been close. They've been really, really close.
They had that 1 year with that very senior heavy team that where they were like a top 10 team in the state. I remember
coming out of COVID, baby. Coming out of COVID, I in a winter league game, I was like, they passed the eye test. They checked all the boxes for me. No one had seen them play yet. I was like, this is my team. And, it helped kick this podcast off well coming out of COVID.
No, one of the coolest towns on this list too. I mean, Buffalo's a sweet town, kind of right on the lake, good little strip, Main Street. Not a lot of great main streets in the metro. Buffalo is one of the best main streets. So I definitely have to give that a shout out. I mean, it's a ways away, but cool town.
Is section 2 the section of main streets? Because Waconia, another good main street.
Great main street. And then I mean, you got to give Minnetonka Excelsior.
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
So I mean, arguably the best main street on the list, but Buffalo's also a good main street. Laconia is a good main street. Hutchinson, a couple restaurants there I like. I don't know.
Yeah, and Hutchinson's got to have a good main street. They're a small town, smallish town, but Chanhassen. I know that this isn't Chanhassen per se, but in the Chanhassen School District, Victoria's got a little main drag. And the Victoria address kids go to Chan. So section 2 is a great main street section. We'll see as we go through the sections. We'll see if anybody can compete with that. Buffalo also cool stadium, if I'm not mistaken. Like the fans are right above right on the sideline, right?
We were there 2 years ago, and yeah, the fans are right on top of you. You kind of got to watch what you're saying a little bit. Fans are going to hear you, but also you're going to hear them. Like the fans were getting on us and the refs and what was going on. So it was a cool interaction. And yeah, they were right on top of you. It was a different environment, than our normal stadium that we're at, and so it was a lot of fun. I like their facilities.
this off topic, but did Buffalo take credit for the Big Boar in Hanover? I know mixed reviews on the pod, and I don't want to
Mixed
crumble a
reviews,
snub.
mixed reviews. It's been pumped. It's been pummeled. But
There's a
uh,
better recommendation in that town of Hanover, tiny little town, but if we're giving Buffalo credit for it, the River Inn has the best prime rib in the metro. It
talk to
is
me.
And
Talk to me.
River Inn,
The
phenomenal.
the river in
Bar and
Hanover.
Grill in Hanover has the best prime rib in the
It,
entire
it
metro.
comes up the prime rib dinner. It's on.
It's
I googled
fantastic.
it. I just typed it. I'm on Google. I'm still on the Google page. I'm not on the riverin.com. Boom. Prime rib. It just
It's so
blitzing
good.
my face. The
Yeah.
prime rib dinner. 8 photos, 7 reviews. I love how this river, and now I'm in the website. I'm getting deep into the website. Usually prime rib dinner. I'm thinking a Friday night special. No, not at the River Inn. This is a special that's 7 nights a week, folks. 7 nights a week. What does it?
Buffalo, I know the coach was new last year though, so this is what I was gonna say is it usually takes to look at Deion Sanders, it usually takes 2 years to get your stuff in and to really have some success of implementing your systems and everything. So um I know he's a younger coach, but year two, I would expect Buffalo to kind of rebound from last year, and it's definitely not a team to look over. The record doesn't tell the full story there because they played some really tight games, especially in the section.
yeah, and I'm looking, they lost a couple guys, a couple seniors that were kind of their main point scorers, but they get a handful of those guys back too that were contributors, that are seniors or juniors this year. So that's interesting. Something that jumped out to me, Gavin Lindell, their goalie, 61.5% save percentage last year. Saw 314 shots on goal. It's, over 20 shots a game. So he was seeing a lot of shots and keeping them in games, because then when you kind of look at their game schedule, like you said, a lot of one goal losses. They had a 1-goal win against Eden Prairie. That's a big win. But 1-goal loss to Chan in the regular season, a 1-goal loss to Shakopee, 4 goals to Minnetonka. That's a tight game. Um, and then in sections, they are actually a 2-goal loss to Orono. That's the regular season, and then a 2-goal win against Chaska in sections and a 1-goal loss to Chan in sections. So a lot of tight games, like you said, against respectable programs. So a few bounces of the ball, a few changes. They might be a different team.
No, for sure. And I guess my insight, just going to some of the recruiting showcases with William Penn, I found out um, this William Weber, he was injured last year. So I think he'll be a pretty good contributor. When I went on their Instagram, he's committed to Concordia, Wisconsin. So he's a good player. Um, I saw one of their other attackmen. I can't think of the name. They have some middies that are horses for Buffalo that I know of. So I would expect this team to be pretty deep. Um, like I said, this is more of a unknown for me. If I'm looking at every team, I don't know them quite as well because I wasn't a part of the team when they played them. But I do know they had some injuries last year. They have some horses, and they have a second year coach. So wouldn't overlook them.
Uh, Going to the last, middle of the pack team that I consider, maybe in that category, Chaska of the Chaska Hawk. They're the Hawks. C3. Another staff that hasn't been around for ever, but they're in year probably 3 or 4. I would say they've gotten this uh gotten this program more on the right track than maybe it was. They're coming off a more respectable season, right around 500. I don't I how do I say this? I don't know if last year was maybe the window that they were building for. Maybe it's this year. I'm not sure. Where maybe they think they're in. Their best player, Cameron Atterbury. I don't think that's a secret. very skilled player. He's now a senior. They bring back both of their goalies. They've got other pieces for sure. But they graduated some important pieces as well. Is this a team that takes a step forward in their process, stays about the same? Where do we think they're at? In their program building.
I'm actually glad you put them in this top five because I think they belong there in this tier this year. They've always kind of historically been kind of with some of those smaller schools, but I've watched Chaska a good bit when I was recruiting with William Penn, going to Mound versus Chaska a couple years ago. And one of my observations was they're a well-coached team. Like they're doing things right over there. And like even like obviously we're really supportive of it. Minnetonka doing a lot of off-season stuff. Chaska's in all this stuff too. So that was a surprise for me. Is Chaska's playing a box league, they're playing in a fall league. Their whole team is there. They're not co-oping. So I've seen Chaska a good bit, and those guys compete. They play really tough, and they have the players that some of these other teams have at the top, and their issue is just depth.
Yeah, that would be my number one thing. Like PMAC touched on it. Cameron Atterbury, 74 points last year. Obviously really good. Star offensive player for them. But I know they lost a bunch of their polls. In their next couple guys that were their point producers also graduated. So, rumor has it they have a good 2027 group. So those kids were freshmen last year. They'll be sophomores this year. Maybe those guys were like a JV guys last year, so that they don't show up on the lax sub stat sheet. Maybe those guys are filling varsity spots this year. Is the window is the time 2024, or is it maybe more of a 2025 season? Atterbury is a senior this year, so he'll graduate, and he's a big piece of what they're doing. A player I do really like on their team that's a young player that I've had the opportunity to coach, Connor Cunningham, super good pull with a ton of upside. He was getting varsity minutes as a freshman last year, so he's a tough kid. He's going to go out there and do what you need him to do. So I just shout it to him. He's a solid player.
Yeah, I've worked a lot with him as well. I would imagine with the graduation they've had back there, he's going to be probably logging every minute his lungs can handle.
I would assume.
I have a source. I did live in Chaska for 4 weeks while my house was being repaired, so I do get some of the
how's their downtown?
They have a good downtown. I mean, they have a couple. There's a Mexican joint downtown Chaska, and it's elevated on the main street, so it's like 2 floors high in one part of the place, and it overlooks the main street. Now, is it a good enough Mexican joint to drive more than 2 towns to go to? It's borderline. The best Mexican joint's actually in Watertown, which doesn't even have a team, so we'll give that to Delano.
Watertown, South Dakota, or are we talking Watertown, Minnesota?
Well, I don't know where Watertown kids would go. They would either go to Mound or Delano. So that's another team. But my inside scoop, just being at William Penn as well, they had a kid move in from Washington State who is committed to Concordia in Wisconsin, and he's a fairly good player. So I think that'll give him a little boost with some senior help.
There you go. Insider information.
You said you said the best Mexican restaurant in the area is in Watertown, Minnesota.
It's 100% in Watertown.
Yes. Is it La Katrina Restaurante and Bar?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, I'll do a little deep dive. While you talk about, is there any dark horse in this section that I'm not saying they have to win this section. I'm not saying they need to win the state tournament, but is there going to be somebody out of the top 5 that might make some noise? You got Waconias, you got Hutch. You've got Mound West Tonka, Holy Family, a private school if you want to go that direction. Delano, is Delano Orono a rival? I don't know. In my head, they are. Not my part of town, so I can't really I can't really comment. But are any of these schools gonna make noise? Do I need to keep maybe an eye on one of them?
So a couple things. So Holy Family I think has new coaching staff as well. They struggled last year, but maybe things are going to be different with a new staff. But um, rumor mill Mound West Tonka in the Minnetonka Winter League is like co-opt for the Winter League with Breck, and they're like a pretty decent squad. I guess to some people's surprise, the Mound West Tonka Breck team in the Winter League has been like playing some top teams pretty strong. Now, we didn't get a roster check here. This could just be a club all-star team that just puts on Mound West Tonka jerseys. But Garrett, any truth to maybe, is there something happening in Mound West Tonka, or are these all Breck kids, or what's going on there?
The one game I missed, I was snowmobiling, so I missed that game with a lower team. So horrible source for that. And I'm not in the Discord, so I don't know, but Holy Family. Okay, so we played them with our younger team, and they did happen to bring like one of Benild's Division 1 kids, possibly like a different goalie. But take those two facts away, very much improved. Like that is not an 0-13 team. So I see a little bit of a gap between maybe Holy Family and some of these other teams on record, but they're not going 0-13 this year. I thought they were well coached. I thought they played hard. And they did poach a couple of guys, but they had a few guys in Holy Family helmets that were good players. So I don't think that they will finish at the bottom of this section this year. So I'll agree with you, Ted, there.
Yeah, I don't have any other thoughts on kind of the lower end of this section. That was just a couple tidbits on some teams that were maybe sort of on the bottom, the bottom half of this section. I'd love to see one of these other teams like a Waconia, Delano, Mound West Tonka, Holy Family, Hutchinson. I'd love to see one of these teams, improve enough to kind of again make things interesting and give the top five maybe a little bit of run for their money.
We got a restaurant recommendation from one of the towns we skipped over. Delano.
Sneak it in. Delano, what do you got?
So we got Dave's Bar and Grill in Delano. And if you go look at their menu, there's not a lot of like gritty. I mean, there's plenty of grittier bars with good food in Minnesota. I guess that's kind of what we're known for. But like this place has the best dive bar food, and it's so cheap. Like burgers there are a few bucks, and it's just it's a great spot under the radar.
Dave's Bar and Grill.
This place looks gritty.
It's like
but a good gritty, like you're not gonna get beat up gritty.
No.
Like it's a good gritty.
Like the light bulbs aren't fully bright, right? They're like
for sure not. One might be burnt out. One might not turn on.
Bars.
They're next door to the butcher too, so they got like a good little thing going with like the Delano co-op down there, just like helping each other out. But
and you're right. Spot. The cheese curds, they're not $15, they're $6.50. Like, thank you. Yeah. Like, they don't need to be $12.50, they're $6.50. Like, yeah, I appreciate that in this economy. Where was I going to take this? Section 2. This is a section, definitely a very competitive section. They've got some high-end talent. They've won a state tournament. They've been competitive in state tournaments. As of late, I think it's been a while. What are some final takeaways? Who's going to come out of this section, and what can this section do in the final dance here?
I think a big takeaway I have is we haven't touched on it yet, but like another culture shock coming from Iowa to Minnesota. These fields that are used for girls and guys lacrosse those teams should be banned from hosting state tournaments or section tournaments or anything
The
like that.
universal fields.
The
The
universal
universal
field.
fields.
What are you doing? The PLL shortens the field, and then Minnesota's like, oh, we actually want to just be a 6v6 stall ball league, and we want an 120-yard field. And we are going to just play 7-6 games because we're going to run our guys, 20 more yards than they need to. I think that's crazy, and they should be banned from hosting. Anybody who has a universal field, banned.
Yeah, I agree with you. As an offensive coach, I have a hard enough time with shot selection, like implementing lax IQ shot selection on like how far, in my mind, I can pull up from 17 to 18 yards and I can hit a corner, but in reality, you're probably more of a 10 to 12-yard guy. And then you move the box line 5 more yards basically out, and guys are ripping 23-yard rippers.
Oh.
It's just like, oh my God, it makes me pull my hair out.
I think it messes up the defense. As a defensive guy, like, you've got to talk about, hey, usually we're, we want to be at this hash or this yard line. It's 5, 10, whatever the yard. We're moved back. Like, get in.
Yeah, and then you're playing on fields where the end line is cutting through the end zone, but then it's all the way to the actual end, like the football, like field goal end line. First world problems, excuses, right? But yeah,
I think it's a real thing, though. I think it's a real thing.
In Iowa, like, they didn't even have great fields in Iowa, but they made boys and girls fields. So I don't know what we don't have the funding to have 2 creases. Like, come on. Anyway, what was your question, P-Mac?
That's just the final takeaway. Yeah.
Hey, final takeaway on the section. Any prediction? And what can section do, as a representative, in this upcoming season at the state tournament? Is this a section? I feel like it should, but in your eyes, are we competing for a state championship here?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like Minnetonka Lake Conference, I mean, the Lake Conference produces some really good teams. So if you can produce well in the Lake Conference, a lot of the times you could do well in the state tournament. If you look at Eden Prairie last year, I talk about a team that did more with less. I mean, they had some great star power, but just a lot of horses and a well-coached team. So yeah, there's a ton of potential. Chanhassen's had a ton of success. Yeah, I think looking at lax numbers, there's a couple of different tiers to the section. I think we have it kind of spot on here. If one of those middle teams can break through, it wouldn't surprise me if there's a new team in the semifinal or final. But I think just looking at everything at face value, there's a couple of different tiers to the section. I think historically there's been a lot of success out of the section as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if one of these teams can make it further than they did last year.
Perfect. Well, we got the girls coaches from Section 2 coming on here momentarily. Garrett Brunsvold, thanks for breaking down the boys with us and giving us the insight into Winter League and and Section 2 overall. Thanks for coming down the alley with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
And thank you to Coach Brunsvold for coming down the alley with us. Multi episode guest for us. Good insight. And as we jump into it, we're jumping right to the girls here. We'll give a breakdown of the boys, and girls, kind of closing thoughts.
Although the big game is over, we have some big news. Old Southern Barbecue is extending their playoff platter special through March Madness. 40 wings, 2 slabs of ribs, ranch dressing, and a bottle of barbecue sauce for just $89.99. So if you are hosting any of the big sporting events coming up, make sure to order the playoff platter and bring your crowd to its feet this playoff season. And make sure to tell them that DTA sent you. Are you looking for a dedicated partner for your lacrosse needs? ES Lacrosse has got you covered. If you're brand new to the game, a seasoned vet, or a dedicated lacrosse parent, ES Lacrosse is the go-to partner for Minnesota Lacrosse and DTA Nation. Whether you need new gear, a restringing of your current setup, custom uniforms or apparel for your team, or one of their awesome starter sets for your brand new lacrosse player, the selection, expertise, and service at ES Lacrosse is unmatched. You can visit them in-store at one of their 3 metro locations in Woodbury, Chanhassen, and Vadnais Heights, or visit them online at eslacrosse.com.
And welcome to Down the Alley. We've got Chandler Dezellar, I should have asked if that's how you pronounce it, and Anna Rydeen from Minnetonka, the Tonka coaching staff. Welcome to Down the Alley.
Thanks for having us. It's Chandler like friends. But
Chandler like friends. Looking back to, last year, Minnetonka obviously coming off a great season. How was last year? How was your state tournament run? And how long have you guys been a part of the Tonka, program?
Yeah, so we came over, last year was our second season, so this will be our third season this year. Anna and I both came from Chaska. We had coached there for a while. I was the assistant varsity coach, and then Anna was the JV coach, but we all kind of worked closely together. So a couple years ago when Krista went to Buffalo, they had an opening, and so we went over there, and so 2 seasons under our belt, and then going into our third. Last season was, honestly, we couldn't have asked for anything better. I feel like we had such a good group of kids, but also just it was kind of like the quintessential, like we had some struggles in the beginning of the season with dynamics and whatever, and then we kind of overcame that by the end of the season. And so it was really fun because I feel like we saw our progress like throughout the season. So it was awesome. Yeah. And first time Tonka ever made it to state for girls. So
there we go. And Tonka boys and girls both made it. So that, I bet that was kind of a fun energy, in the town and, in the programs. Just looking. Go ahead.
And shout out consolation champs too, right? In the state tournament. So won a couple games in the state tournament. So not only just made it first time, but had some success when you got there, which is good. So congratulations to you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really fun. We said we're one of the only teams that got to end our season on a win. So that was a really cool element to it. And we had a lot of seniors too. So I think it was very, everything came together and it was very fun.
Looking at the history of Section 2, obviously having programs like yourselves, Eden Prairie, Chanhassen, to name a few, Blue Blood programs that, compete for championships year in and year out. What's the section like? And talk about the history and the competitiveness, a little bit, of Section 2.
Yeah, I think everybody probably will agree with us that we come from a very competitive section. We have those big teams that you named, like the Eden Prairie, Chanhassen, Orono is really stepping into the picture too, as of especially last season, I think was a big one. But it was a tough road to state. Like last year, I mean, we battled to get that Section 2 champ title. We had a really close game, like neck and neck with Orono. And then Eden Prairie, same thing. It was a really close game, really competitive. So not an easy road by any means. And I think it's been that way for a few years now. And really those teams kind of alternate, like who's the top dog. And I think it's been fun the last couple seasons because you don't really know who the top dog is until you just play the game. So it's been fun to watch and fun to be a part of. Chaska can get in the mix there too every once in a while. But I think it'll be kind of the same story. I think it'll be a lot of back and forth between those 4 teams, like that Chanhassen, Eden Prairie, us, and Orono, I think are going to be battling it out again this year. So
we're going to have to fact check. And this is like maybe a source question or like a TED question. I feel like, was there any other team besides now since 3 years ago when Chan beat Eden Prairie, had any other team gone to state out of that section?
I don't think so. But you might want to
Like
fact check.
this is not like, I'm not putting it like, we're gonna have to get our fact checkers out, but like I remember 3 years ago when Chan won, that like rocked the boat, because it was like everyone's just like, you just, for so long, everyone's immediate knee jerk reaction was like, oh, Eden Prairie, you got to get through Eden Prairie. We're never going to win. We got to get through Eden Prairie. And then Chanhassen did. And then now it's like, and now you're in the mix too, that it's like, I kind of like that the playing field and like competitive games, don't get me wrong, but like it's exciting, but it's like, dang, for the last 4 years, there's been 3 teams now to come out, that it's like, it is very competitive. And it'll be exciting to see kind of this year. I feel like, again, we'll get to that of like who's top contenders. But so you said it like last year, beginning of the season. How did that, was like kind of rocky? How did that differ than like first year probs?
I think, and honestly, like if you go look at our record or that kind of thing, it probably wouldn't look that way to the outside. It was more dynamic wise and just like team bonding wise. But I feel like last season, just to be totally upfront and honest, I feel like there was all this pressure because we had this senior heavy team. Everybody, it was very well, known by our girls, like we have a chance to make it and make this history making goal of getting to state. And so I feel like that goal almost got put ahead of just like what was in front of us that week type of thing. So we were like looking so far to the end of like, we want to make it to state, we want to do those things, but it's like, no, we have to overcome all these games and we have to come together. And, if we blow a team out of the water, what can we learn from that game? If we lose a game that we thought we were going to win, what can we learn from that game and grow from it? And I think our season really shifted after we lost to EP, like midway through the season. Because I think we all kind of thought we were going to go in there and that was going to be our game. That was going to be our time. We were going to break that wall of not being able to get past EP during the season. And we lost. I think we lost by 5 goals or something like that. And we, to be totally blunt, like didn't play very well. And we didn't come together that day. And so I remember Anna and I having a conversation, and Anna, as we know, is very feisty and was like very not happy about it. And I was like, honestly, I think that was good for us. I think we needed to see our weaknesses. We needed to see what we could do better, because I think they hadn't seen it. We'd won game after game after game. And they were just like, okay, we got this. But then when we lost that game, we really got to break down like, okay, where do we need to come together? How do we overcome like little interpersonal things that shouldn't matter on the field, that kind of thing. So we really were able to use losses that we had and, just be better from it. And I think that was really, to me, that stuck out last season of the moment where I feel like we changed. So.
Yeah, kind of looking at your schedule last year before we kind of jump into the team and kind of what's happening this year. You were 6-0, and then lost that game to Eden Prairie. And I think you're right. Like you start to kind of be like, okay, we're winning. Now we're really good. And like, are we? And you don't know. And then you kind of, so you kind of get, you get to like reset. Then you went on to win 5 more games in a row and then played Prior Lake and got beat right before playoffs. And then that set the tone for a good playoff run. So it kind of worked out to have like a couple humbling moments. And then about what I see from this and is impressive is that there was a response then. And like, okay, we got, maybe it didn't go how we wanted. We're frustrated, but now we're going to go win 5 games in a row or win 6 of our next 7 or whatever. So that is, that's a cool thing about your team. And as I'm looking at, we'll start at the top with your team. You did have a few seniors, but you get a lot of players back too. Like I kind of look, and unless I'm looking at this wrong, your leading scorer comes back, your goalie comes back.
Dang.
So
and I was wondering about your goalie. She's insane.
Yeah, but it looks like
she's great.
Clara Gilbert, 92 points last year. She'll be a senior. Lily Palm, 75 points. It looks like Claire Christopher is a senior. 29 points. There's a little drop off after Lily, but there's some production coming back, and then obviously the goalie, a senior goalie coming back, which always is helpful. You're not worried about that. Any other spots in your team maybe that you're going to be looking to replace some people or that you're excited about?
Yeah, we're really going to be rebuilding our midfield. We lost kind of our main draw taker, Ellie Fuchs, last season. She was kind of our master. She was very smart with it. She knew where the ball was going. Even if we weren't winning, she could kind of help direct her teammates. Like, I think this is where it's going to go, So she was a really good quarterback out there. She's another big loss. But our draw is going to look completely different. Claire, who you just mentioned, will be on the circle again, I assume. And she's great. She's an amazing circle girl. So I'm hoping that we can kind of stack our draw a little bit better, because that was as good as we had some players up there. I think that was also kind of our weak spot. Like, there were teams that were stronger at it. So we have a lot of young talent coming up, and I don't even know every single person. I've seen them, playing captain's practices and at random tournaments and stuff, but I think we have some good talent that's coming up, because that midfield, I think, was our spot where we could have used maybe a little bit more fire. And so I think we might have that, which would be really exciting.
Yeah, looking, to other top contenders, in the section, looking to, the team you beat in Prairie. We've already, talked about them a little bit. Obviously a tight game with them last year, a program that seems to never go away, always seems to, be in the mix and competing for conference championships, section championships, state championships. What is Eden Prairie, I assume, going to continue to be a top contender in Section 2?
I can only assume, because it's Eden Prairie. It's hard to know for sure. Those Avery and Josie Wallace are the two that graduated last year that were just, they were incredible. It just on the draw, it just up on the field, everything. They were so good. And I feel like they were the people that really combated us last year, and they don't have them this year. So I'm curious to see who kind of their rising stars are. I know they had an attack player. I think it was Sarah David, I think, is the one that's returning. But I remember she had a few goals against us, and she was a really solid scorer. So like I said, I can only assume, and Brooke is an amazing coach. And so I'm sure she has a lot of talent up and coming. So that's kind of what I know about them. But I also think they'll be similar to us in that they graduated some big names, but like I said, I can only assume they have good up and coming talent that they're going to fill those spots with pretty quickly.
Yeah, looking at my notes here, lost 269 points from 5 of their seniors. So quite a bit of production. Casey Kachavar, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Name? The Wallace
She's
sisters.
really good too.
But it sounds like Sarah David, Kelsey Pottinger, and Maggie Pearson might be kind of some players coming up. It's always hard too, because in high school sports, if you have 3 or 4 big gun seniors that are doing everything, there could be some good players behind them that we just don't even know about, because there's no need for them to produce. They just kind of take their role and they run with it. So we'll see. I agree with you though. It's hard to, at this point, count Eden Prairie really out ever, because it just seems like they're always finding a way in the mix. So, but yeah, a lot of points they're gonna have to find to replace from last season.
The number 3 seed last year, Orono, a team that was mentioned by you guys earlier, they had 3 losses last year. 2 of them were to Minnetonka. Their only other loss was to Benilde St. Margaret's, another top contender across the state. They had wins against Eden Prairie, Gentry, amongst other, top programs. Orono, is this a team that, was maybe a one-hit wonder last year, or are they here, sticking around?
They're sticking around for sure, I think. They have those 2. I don't remember what year they are. I want to say they'll be juniors, but I think it's Layla Nick and Dylan Collins. Those are some names they're going to be big in our section, I think, this season, probably next season. They have a good goalie too. I'm blanking on her name, but she was really solid. I think they had like 2 goalies last season, and then they kind of played, I think it's Gianna, I think that's her name. Sorry, I should know that. But so she kind of took off, I think, at the end of the season. And so I think they'll have a lot returning to the field. I'll be curious to see. And I just think as we all kind of know as coaches, when you can return players that have been on the varsity field and have that talent, I mean, that's going to be definitely a weapon for them this season, because I think the maturity that you get from just multiple seasons on a varsity field is kind of unmatched in terms of when you're going up against somebody.
I'm sure Ted has more detailed notes, but just looking at this quickly, they're not just returning talent or young talent. Like, this is young talent. Some of these players that were putting up ridiculous points were like freshmen, sophomores last year. This is exciting. Ted, what did you have?
Notes from my source, Dylan Collins, who you mentioned, she's a junior this year, already committed to Furman Division One. And then Layla Nick is another one. She's a sophomore this year. Last year, she had 92 points, 103 draw controls as a freshman. And in the notes, it says Team USA tryouts. She's a quote factor, unquote. And then another sophomore this year, freshman last year, Riley Teal. And then kind of jokingly here, only in quotes, 61 points as a freshman. So, you better bring the defense when you are playing Orono, because they have quite a few players that like to score. And it sounds like, they found out, it looks like their goalies kind of split time quite a bit, but you had mentioned they kind of found someone to maybe be their starter towards the end of the year. Gianna Parrish. So you're right. Gianna is her name. Looks like a team that that will be bringing a lot of firepower back, and maybe a contender in the section.
Yeah, they're fast too. That's what I remember about them.
Cool. No, that's a team I feel like, obviously starting to make noise, but hasn't. So this is exciting. A team that has been in the mix, Chanhassen, another contender, in this section, and has been, I believe, graduated, a superstar player in Gabby Bugan. Are they going to be in rebuild mode after losing a player like that, or are they just going to be reloading and coming back for a title?
So we didn't get to play Chanhassen last season, so I don't know much about what they're returning. We are going to play them in the regular season this year, so that'll be good for us. But I know, that loss of Gabby is definitely a big one, and I know they had some other players that were big factors. But again, similar wavelength as Eden Prairie. I can only assume they have really good talent that's coming up and coming through, because I think things are just getting more and more competitive. And so, I don't have a ton on them, but I know it'll be Logan's second season with them too, coaching wise. And I think that will be also really valuable for them, because I can only assume that it's been hard to change over coaches a couple times. And so I think that will build some stability and just some bonding within their team. And I know she runs an amazing program and is an amazing coach. And so I think that'll definitely be an advantage this season, that they kind of know what they're getting with her, and just having her expertise and her experience.
Yeah, a couple notes on Chan too. So Zoe Zielinski, she is a junior this year, came back after an ACL tear and had 40 points last year. So I guess we would expect maybe even more this year, now that she's a full year recovered. And then interesting one, Hannah Grimm, a commit to Northern Michigan. She's a senior this year. I guess 2 years ago, somebody had said, I don't know if it was one of us on the podcast or someone said that she had the best stick skills on the team, and that was a team with Gabby Bugan, Allie McPartland, Allie Welder, and Tatum Nyan. So they feel like that's worth a mention. So a good offensive player in Hannah Grimm. So there are some players there, and like you said, a good coaching staff, and traditionally a really good program too. So, we'll see. Like this is a tough section. Now that I'm kind of looking at it.
Yeah. They graduate their goalie, Katie. They graduate their goalie.
It's hard. It's hard shoes to fill. Like, your section was 1, 2, 3, 4. It's semifinals. Like, I could kind of see the same 4 teams, but honestly, I think we're just all better off flipping a coin. Than, like, you don't want to hear that, but like, especially with Orono returning, like the way that they're kind of all trending, it's like, no disrespect to the other teams in this section, but I feel like this is a pretty standard 1, 2, 3, 4 again of the teams we just talked about that literally could go whoever is just feeling hot that day. And whoever is having a bad day, like you can't because you're all on each other's toes or on each other's heels rather. And like exciting for all of us, stressful for you, but like it really is kind of cool to have such four competitive teams in the section right off the bat.
Yeah, and I have the bracket pulled up. The semis, both semis and the final were 3-goal games. So like these games too. Again, stressful when you're there as a coach, but as a fan, as someone on the outside, like 4 teams that all probably on a given day, like Katie said, could have a chance to win.
For sure. I was happy that we were the ones that made it to state, but I think any of those teams last season could have competed in the state tournament. Yeah. Like it wasn't a fluke by any means that we won, but I also think that could be said for last season too. Like it literally could have been anybody, and it was in the cards for us, and we just, whatever happened clicked and we made it, but it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be, who does it click for this season, Yeah,
it'll be exciting.
Looking at, the rest of the teams, maybe the middle of the pack or underdog, dark horse, whatever you want to call them, is there a team or two that we should keep an eye out for that, might or could, get an upset, maybe sneak into a semifinal, maybe make a run? I don't know. Is there somebody that could pop off here and make some noise in this section that's not, the 4 that we've already mentioned?
So I don't know. I don't fully know if I have an answer for that, just because I don't know a ton about all the other teams. But I think obviously Anna and I came from Chaska, so I'm always going to throw that name into the mix. And I think they have tried to make some, strides to scrimmage some tough teams, kind of get those things on their radar. So I never want to count them out for sure. That's our roots right there. But yeah, I think that's kind of the team I would say, but I don't really know if I have anyone else that's on my radar right at this point. I think I know Holy Family has a really good goalie. And I think, again, a strong coaching staff, that kind of thing. But I'm just not quite as familiar with the talent and what's up and coming with those teams, I guess I'll say.
It is, in a couple teams, I just have some random notes from Minnetonka Providence Academy. They're co-opt. They only lost 3 seniors, it looks like, and Grace McCuffin had 81 of the team's 88 draw controls. So get a few players back again. I don't know if a team like that has a depth to compete with the big 4, but maybe they find themselves in a quarterfinal this year, as opposed to losing in the playing game. And then Waconia, their 3 leading scorers last year, 2 8th graders and a 9th grader. So, I mean, it's probably not this year, but like they have a couple good players coming up. And Waconia seems to be on the boys' side too, sort of a growing lacrosse community. They got their youth program going, newer high school program. So maybe those are 2 teams for the greater public to look out for in Section 2. Like we said, probably not going to compete with the big 4 here, but maybe something to watch a little deeper in the section.
Like we mentioned, Section 2, plenty of state titles, amongst these programs last year, a consolation championship. What do you think the outlook is for 2025, for, any potential winner out of this section? Is this a section that could compete for the state championship, once we get to that point in the season?
I think yes. I think this season is going to be interesting because I think a lot of these top teams lost seniors, lost some huge players. And so I think I really truly feel like going into any season, it can be anybody's game, anybody's section, anybody's state tournament. And so, I mean, I do think, I think it also works in our favor that we have a tough road to get there. And I think the fact that we have now had that state experience, Chanhassen's had that state experience, Eden Prairie has that state experience, even though some of us might have, you know, a younger team or some newer girls, the, you know, now seniors that have been in those positions before, I think can elevate the game a little bit, because I think even us, that first game we were at state, I mean, we were like eyes wide open, what is going, you know, I mean, we didn't have a great first game showing, but that's okay because it's kind of part of working the kinks out. I mean, don't get me wrong, Anna and I weren't the happiest, but
it's a lot, like you said, about the varsity, like the girls who have the varsity game under their belt. It makes a difference, those state games. Like, it's just kind of like, it's just a lot. You're right. So like, hopefully that will kind of give them the kind of the playoff experience now, that like, if it's going to be such a close race between the four, hopefully that little extra like 2 weeks of playing big time games under their belt, 3 extra games, is going to be that takeaway for them.
Any bold predictions for Section 2, you know, to cap this interview off with?
I mean, I think we got to say Tonka with the 2-peat, right?
We do. We have to say that.
That's my number 1. And my number 2 bold prediction is that you guys are going to be Tonka fans this season.
Okay. I was a Tonka fan last season. You were going to give me a super fan t-shirt.
I don't know. I feel like you weren't on the Tonka train last
Probably
season.
From the beginning. But then after we played you, I was your biggest fan because of your goalie. I'll have a hot take. I think I always have my eye on Hutchinson, but also Delano has a really good girls youth program. Like, in their U10s and U12s are very competitive. I know that doesn't really mean anything, but like, I think it means something, that in the sense of like, they have youth going all the way down, like fielded teams of multiple A and B levels that go down all the way that young, that are going to be up supporting their high school, and like 6 and 7. So like, they're the second grouping, but like, hey, between 5 and 6 or 5, 6 and 7, I think they're sometimes like, would they beat an Eden Prairie and Minnetonka? I don't know. I haven't looked at their roster in depth. I'm sure the source has some things on all of them. Again, this goes into the conversation of classes or this, that, and the other thing, of things that are way out of our control. But like, I wouldn't count them out. Do you play either of those teams like in your regular season? So like, you're late conference. So like, I feel like you guys don't intermingle section wise until your section tournament. So sometimes it's like they do their thing over here in the West, and like you do your thing over here in like the Twin Cities proper. And then it's like, you guys meet up in sections and they're like, hey, you know, and it's like, no one knows besides Orono, maybe you guys played them in the season, of like what they could do.
I think that's all I got for Section 2. Any final thoughts? I love the bold prediction. Tonka's coming back. And what was your second one?
You guys are going to be Tonka fans this season. You guys are cheering for Tonka on the pod.
Have we not? Have we not been? Where have we been on Tonka? I don't remember.
I feel like we were.
I've got short-term memory loss. Were we high? Were we low?
Anna's got a thought. Anna has some beef. Anna's got beef. I can tell.
Did we count them out? I won't.
Yeah, it's not gonna have beef with you.
She has had hate actually for over a year now that she's been wanting to bring up. I can tell. This has been festering.
I need it.
This has been festering in her family group chat.
Let her have it. Let them have it.
Got it. I mean, I did offer you a Superman shirt, Kate. I don't think you did that. But I just think we flew under your radar for a while.
I think you did. I think that's fair.
I think
who were we heavy on? Were we heavy on anyone in section 2, or were we just not?
You're always heavy on. You're always heavy on EP, which EP
you love EP.
You love EP,
which is fair, honestly. But
well, now
PMAC
hates EP, so I know you're right. We do.
Yeah.
Who did we pick last year? Who was my pick? I wonder.
Not us. That's
Okay.
for sure.
Was it not?
Down the alley
Was it
preseason.
AP?
Down the alley preseason. Ted had Tonka 1, and
So
Katie
Ted
and
gets
I.
the super band t-shirt.
Yeah, so Ted's all in on the program.
Ted's a huge skipper.
Katie and I, we had Tonka at 2.
Anchor up
and-
or down. I don't. Would it be up or down? Would you?
I don't know.
How did I not have?
Is it better to be like anchor down and like you're on your boat like solidifying is better, or anchor
Maybe
up
it
like
depends
we're
on the
going?
day. Yeah.
So Anna's got beef still. I know Anna's got beef.
Ted's a super fan. Ted is the Tonka super fan.
Ted gets the super fan shirt.
I do think we give the Minnetonka boys a hard time. I feel like we have some banter with some of their play. I don't know if it's their players or their parents. They're always under some pseudonym, some burner account. And maybe that rubbed off on like Minnetonka girls who have.
Did we just take it out on the girls accidentally?
Yeah, maybe we did.
I think so.
But yeah, we can be we can be Minnetonka super fans. I'll take the shirt. Yeah, but no, I think I do. I love the confidence, and I do think that if for someone who's maybe not in this section or coaching in this section, but they're excited about girls lacrosse, they're like, hey, what should I follow? What should I watch? This section in particular is a really competitive one with a lot of good teams, and like it will be an exciting. Especially when we get down to the end with the playoffs, I think it'll be a really exciting section tournament with the teams that are here.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate your both of your time, and thank you for coming down the alley with us, breaking down Minnetonka and the rest of Section 2.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. And thank you to Chandler and Anna from Minnetonka, the Skippers, for coming down the alley, breaking down Section 2, and giving us some behind the scenes of the Skippers program on the rise. They've done very well in their 2 years. Not that Tonka wasn't a good program, but bringing them, taking them to the next step, the next level, and breaking through the ice and making the state tournament for the first time. For the Skippers, they're obviously doing something right over there.
Yeah, they had a good team last year, and I kind of at the beginning it was like, oh, they were senior heavy. They're not like they don't have a lot coming back. But when I kind of looked at the Lax Hub, just like quick glance, they have a lot of good players coming back, and it's Minnetonka. We kind of talked about it with Garrett beforehand. Lots of kids, great athletic school, strong program. I would be willing to bet there's some pretty good players that just had to wait. It just wait until the senior ahead of them that plays the same position as them graduates. Great. They're great staff. Obviously, I know Anna a little bit. First time meeting Chandler, but seems like they get it. They're motivated. They know what they need to do. And had a good run last year. I think they'll run it back.
Speaking of thinking they're going to run it back or not, let's jump right into the girls' ranking since it's fresh in our minds. From 4 to 1, let's get that out of the way. How are we going to do it? 4 to 1. Ted, since you already think what is your prediction? What are you ranking preseason based on the seedings going into the section tournament in like 12 weeks from now? What do you think about Section 2?
We're doing girls first, correct?
Girls first. Girls rule, boys drool.
My 4 is Chanhassen. My 3 is Eden Prairie. My 2 is Orono. My 1 is Minnetonka. I think Minnetonka, Orono are like 1A, 1B right now, but for purposes of this, I'm going Orono 2. I'm going to say Tonka runs it back, and I'm giving them the edge preseason.
To make this very simple before Katie gives her breakdown, flip Tonka, flip Orono for me. That's my ranking. Orono brings back too much young talent. Crazy amount of points as freshmen. I'm all in on this Orono team. I think they're jumping from 3 to 1 And I think this team is dangerous. And I just love the vibe and the feeling. And I don't want a Tonka t-shirt. Keep the Tonka t-shirts. I don't want them. Give them to Ted. I don't need one. I'm all in on Orono. Katie, what do you got?
I'm going to go Hutchinson 4, Orono 3, EP 2, Minnetonka 1. We'll give them the love. I think they're on a heater. I think they can do the two-peat.
You're out on Chan. They can't replace a Bugan.
You cannot replace a Gabby Bugan.
Okay. So that
And
could
I think
change.
maybe I need an upset. I need Hutchinson in there.
Grass field there, by the way. One of the last few.
Them in Northfield?
Yeah, cool stadium. Grass field, though. So, I mean, they might not even play there until mid-May.
Yeah.
Do we have to do boys' predictions, or are we doing a separate segment for that?
We don't have to. We get to. The boys. Ted, since you started the girls, why don't you start the boys?
I need a second to think here. Can you start the boys for me? I have to.
Hey, I'll give you some time. Since Ted needs a second, I'm going to kill a second. The cake bites. We've been just deleting.
Trader Joe's on a Friday afternoon. We could be in World War III, and if I'm at Trader Joe's on a Friday afternoon, I have no cares in the world. They've got the best things. They just have the best things. I found these sprinkle cake bites, packaged like a cake pop, no stick. And I ate one of them and was like, all right, these are pretty good. Had a second one and like pushed them over to PMAC and was like, these are really good. And now we've deleted them in just a few short days.
The way I described it today, I think you summarized it perfectly. They're better than they should be.
Yeah, they should be dry and not that flavorful, but like really sugary, store-bought cake. They're not. They are moist, the perfect consistency of cake inside, the perfect amount of like coating, frosting chocolate, delicious sprinkles that aren't too crunchy so you don't get like them stuck in your teeth, and you just perfect 2 or 3 bite. Very good. Highly recommend. They're at Trader Joe's. Buy like the cakes and bread, sprinkle cake bites, and we deleted, I think there's 10 in a box, and we absolutely demolished them this week.
So this section 2 boys preview is not brought to you by Trader Joe's. It's brought to you by Old Southern Barbecue, because we love barbecue. We love food. Old Southern Barbecue all over the metro. After a game, after a practice, coaches meeting, whatever, board meeting, take it to Old Southern Barbecue. They'll make sure you're well fed.
And speaking of Old Southern Barbecue, and we're in section 2, we talked about it earlier, Excelsior. They are opening a new location in Excelsior. I think it's coming in May.
Is it going to be on the main strip? Coach Brunsvold, main strip guy?
I don't know.
I love Excelsior.
Don't know exactly where it's going to be, but you will have an Old Southern Barbecue to go to in a couple months here. ES Lacrosse, another proud sponsor of ours. They have a gear swap coming up beginning of March.
Hey, that's coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up quick, and great opportunity to go maybe bring some gently used gear if you want to upgrade, or if you want to get rid of some old gear for maybe a newer player to come in and buy something used. Great community event. It's a great way to like just get everybody involved and like, get new stuff if you need to, but also, clean out the garage. But it does really allow some of the newer players that might not want to spend a full boat on brand new gear if they're trying it, or if they're younger kids that are growing quickly, to get some, used gear for a season and not break the bank. So really cool event that ES Lacrosse does. And so get out and support them. And even if you're going to go check it out and just be there for the vibe, definitely do that. That's on March 1st, Saturday, March 1st. So make sure to check their socials and their newsletter and their website for specific information on how to get involved with that. And you can also go and I think sell your gear. So contact them about that. But Section 2 boy. Oh, do you have something, P-Mac?
I was just gonna say, it looks and it appears Old Southern Barbecue's new location, right by Lagos Tacos, right by the breweries and stuff. So I think I don't know, I'm not super familiar, but it seems like it might be on their main strip right by the water there. So it's checking all the boxes for Coach Brunsey in Section 2.
Yeah, Section 2. This is a good post game place for Section 2 battle. Boys predictions. The girls had like a big four, and these were all like really like teams that I felt like were on the upswing. Section 2 boys have kind of a big four for me, but it kind of is like more question marks. Like they're kind of all toss-ups. Like, so
what? Okay, so let's start from the top then. What's your one team where you're confident? Because when I'm looking at, I agree with you.
So Minnetonka has a good amount of kids coming back. They got kids in key positions coming back. There's been no coaching changes as far as I know. And I think they're like the most, in my opinion, stable program right now as far as like what's like returning, like proven commodities, right? Proven players that had varsity experience, put production up. They got a great attackman in Gabe Miller. They got a face-off guy. They got maybe a goalie situation that was the question mark, but other than that, it seems like every position. So they're my one right now. The next three teams, I kind of was like, as we were chatting there, I was like moving them around. Like, no, I like.
Yeah.
Kind of depends on the day, but so I'm gonna go. 4 is Chan.
Okay. Wow.
They have so many question marks. They have a superstar player in Cade Bush, but just too many. There were so many guys that graduated.
Yeah.
Like I said, they have a great youth program, so they might have talent coming up, but I think they're going to be. They have to be young. They had so many guys graduate.
Right.
Number 3 is going to be Orono, but not by much. I think their goalie did a lot more for them than maybe people realized. I think he was kind of a stud for them. And Garrett talked a little bit about they can put 10 good players on the field, but they might not have the depth. I'm gonna go Buffalo 2.
Okay.
I think like there was that big year in 23 where they had those big guns, and 22 they were really good. Couple like kind of building years. But they get a lot of guys back as well, and as Garrett mentioned as well, kind of year 2 of a new coaching staff, so they're a little more familiar. I think they make a jump. They played a lot of close games last year, so for that reason, that's why I have them at 2. But honestly, you could probably bump them down to 4 and mix it all up. This is a very close race for me between 2, 3, 4.
So holistically, I agree with you. I would go Tonka number 1. I think on paper they're the ones returning the most, the least amount of question marks. I agree. I think Tonka is my 1 as well. Hearing you talk this through, I'm like, maybe I'm completely off. I'm going to stick with my gut. My gut, Brunsvold thinks there's not going to be as big of a drop-off for Orono at goalie. I'm going Orono at 2. Maybe I'm fooled. Maybe I'm listening to the wrong people. Maybe I only listened to one little thing of the conversation. That's the thing that was sticking with me. I feel like they're returning a lot, enough. I don't know. Buffalo 3. They're in the mix. I'm always high on them. Bison Boulevard. I can't get enough. Chan 4 for me. It's weird. It's weird putting Chan at 4. I feel like I feel like it's gonna prove to be a dumb decision.
I agree with that. It felt wrong
It feels wrong. It feels so wrong
for so long. But I had to go with like the objective decision here and not like the emotional decision. And just looking at it, I agree with you, but I got the exact same feeling. I was like, am I really writing Chan as a 4, a team that's been a top, what, 5, 10 for sure, even top 5
in the state. Yeah.
State the last 5 years, 8 years.
You're kind of throwing me off with that.
I know. Ted would threw me off, and I was like,
I didn't hear the breakdown, so now I'm kind of like, I'm gonna not follow your lead.
I would recommend not following my lead. So
I'm gonna
go ride that wave.
Kind of I see the big 4. I think I'm gonna put Orono at 4, Buffalo at 3, Chan at 2, and Minnetonka at 1.
And that's what seems logical. Ted and
you guys are like, I'm going to take the objective, and I think you guys are reading too much into it. It's like Eden Prairie. Like, it's just like, I don't know if a Minnetonka and a Chanhassen would drop off that fast. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just saying it takes a lot more to find those final wins than just having like a good regular season. And like we always say, like playoffs are a lot different. And I think a Minnetonka and Chan are going to be really hard to beat in playoffs.
But that's kind of where I was saying is like, I had to get away from the subjectivity of like, I can't count them out because of what they did the last 5
years. Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is like, that's where I had to be like, it felt weird, kind of reiterating your point, and PMAX said it too. It felt weird, like putting them there.
Yeah. But it's on paper.
Like, that's what's like on paper. But you're right. There is that aspect of good teams and great teams find a way to reload and find new players and put guys and girls in roles and be a good team. It's not always about just having 10 really superstar players or 11 superstar players. It's about being well coached, being organized, having a good team. And Chan certainly could be that.
Love it. Yeah. Thank you for tuning into Down the Alley this week, Section 2. High school lacrosse, it is right around the corner. It's right around the corner. April 1st will be here before we know it. College lacrosse has started, men's. By the time this episode drops, women's. Tune in, and we'll be back next week. Section 3. I got nothing else to add here.
I think that's good. We will catch you all on the flip side.
Adios.